a slum with its southern neighbor.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Okay. Looks like we have 3, so I think we can go ahead and get started if that works. Good to see everyone. I think, Marie, do you want to start with the Basel progress?
Sure. I'll share my screen. It's always a struggle. I think this is okay. Maybe. Dang it. Okay, sorry. I'll have to rejoin because I'll have to give it permissions.
Okay.
We'll be back.
While she's doing that, the plan for today is we'll start with Marie giving us an update on the Basel build system changes. Aswin has a short 5-minute chat about the proposed changes for like sort of home base for the project. And then if there's anything else, we can bring it up. And then for me, I just want to give us a short update on the proposals backlog, but it seems like we're in a decent spot with that.
Hey guys.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. So I wanted to give a quick update on the Session D basalification proof of concept. So I presented this as a original proposal, I think close to 2 months ago. I've accomplished most of the things that I listed that I wanted to do, which is Bazelify session D, the executable, all unit tests, and just Bazelify anything that, so like a lot of common functionalities that's shared between session D and MME, I have had to Bazelify in process to get this to happen. And I also validated the build by running it through all integration tests, TerraVM tests, the existing performance tests, just to be sure that it is an identical or an equal build.
Quick question. Are
yes.
you're presenting the Sentry.io website? Is that what you intended?
No, that is not what I intended.
Okay.
Dang it. What am I sharing then?
It looks like
there's another Sentry page. There's another. Is that it? Is that better?
Okay, there we go.
Okay, I didn't realize there were 2 Safari windows. Yes, so so I validated the build, and I also established a VS Code based workflow that integrates with Bazel. So now I've created workspaces for both. So Scott already developed a dev container earlier. So I enhanced that to include the Bazel modifications. I've also added a workspace that integrates with our Magma VM workflow. So you can embed, basically it's like a remote SSH workspace that runs VS Code inside the VM, or it runs the IDE on your host machine, but then you can work as if you're inside the VM. And for most of these, I will give a talk or a presentation on it in the day after tomorrow's DevOps meeting. So I can go through all of those in depth. Some statistics that were kind of are relevant, I guess, is so building session D from scratch with all external dependencies. So things like protobuf, gRPC, Sentry, like most external dependencies except for Folly are built with Bazel. And that, when you're starting with a really clean cache, takes about 7 minutes. In practice though, I've set up like a basic disk cache that is in the host machine. And that brings down a cached session D build down to close to 1 minute. And that's true for VM restarts. So in the existing CMake build, we don't cache in the host machine, or like we don't store the cache in the host machine. So we have to clear the cache every time. And this is why, basically, yeah, this is why the build time is shorter with Bazel. Yeah. And 3, I validated that. So with smaller modifications, rebuilding session D and running unit tests is shorter with Bazel because it has a better sense of what's affected. So I think I ran some tests, modified some files, and ran some tests with both build systems, and Bazel was around faster by 1 minute. And session D doesn't have too many unit tests. I think it has maybe 10 test files with like 10 to 30 tests in each file. Okay. Yes, so we still have pending work on that would be necessary to fully migrate session D and other CC++ services to Bazel. And I thought that this would be a good point to make the transition, or like commit to a transition before, because it's getting a little difficult to sort of do both while maintaining the CMake build. So some of these things are migrating code coverage generation and investigating like best caching mechanism for CI and dev. So those might look slightly different. I'm still experimenting with all the options. So that's basically a rundown of all the things that I did and all the things that are pending. So I think this is at a good place to get a TSC vote on, but would love to get more feedback.
Cool. So yeah, thanks, Marie. I think, yeah, like you mentioned, now's the point for maybe feedback of requesting additional input or hesitation for whether we should do this, because to me the default would be that we move forward with this.
Marie, are you gonna give a quick maybe status update, maybe even with the background on Basil, and then so maybe a why were we doing this slide or two, followed by the status, followed by a vote upcoming announcement to like a couple of our public meetings, maybe like the general public meeting or something, or I don't know what's the most applicable, but
maybe in the wider engineering meeting, if there's space, I can just make a quick announcement on, just get everyone familiarized with the original proposal and the status update.
I think a why, a status, and a timeline. So they realize that we're about, without hearing more, we're ready to move forward. Just so that all people who want to hear about it have heard about it. Also, maybe a post to like Slack dev, anything like that comes to mind.
Yeah, so I think that's a good input, that maybe what we do is we publicize this for this 2 weeks, or maybe even like for 1 week, and then we can take like an offline vote after the first week. Do you feel like you're blocked on this, Marie, as in you want to start making imminent progress, or do you feel like a week of publicizing and just making sure that there's no public hesitation?
No, I think a week is fine. Yeah, I'm not like especially blocked. It's just, I think it's
okay.
I've come to a good point. So
cool. Yeah, I think it seems like a reasonable estimation of like where things are at. Like switching over the code coverage seems like it would be a bit hairy if we didn't just make a full changeover. And yeah, I think Scott's point is a good one, that let's just push it out to people for a week. Maybe, yes, send a message in the dev channel today, and then at the Eng meeting, or at least the CI meeting that you said you'd plan to present at, let's do that. And then if you would, just this time next week, give or take, start a short little vote in the TSC private chat, and then we can use what, I can't remember the name of the bot we use, Accord or something. We can do like a short little Accord bot, or maybe the emails would work. I think we've done emails in the past, and that's quicker.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's do the email, and then we can move forward with it.
Sounds great.
Cool. Okay, thanks, Marie. Aswin, do you want to give us an overview of your thoughts on how we can move toward a more unified home base for the project?
Yeah, quick shout out to Jess. She's the one who had suggested that some of the other LF projects had a very structured approach to this. And so the question for this group is, do we want to try and mirror some of the other LF projects and have a Confluence page that has all of our minutes and our agenda and clean list of what the action items are? And that would allow for better engagement from the external thing. A couple of things to note: our calendar or even our meeting minutes and stuff are not really linked from our public websites. So I think having it all cleaned up is going to be beneficial, especially now that we're asking some of our internal partners to work from the external angle as well.
My initial input is that, yeah, it feels like there are just too many entry points right now. For example, like editing anything about the public website, I don't even know which repo that is. I've never myself made a change, so I've like had to ask other people, like, here's a specific description of what I want. I tried a couple of months back to turn the Slack into the home base, where I added a whole bunch of entry points as bookmarks when Slack came out with that feature to the general channel and all the other relevant channels. But I still find that it's like it felt lacking. Like people, it often still felt like people were confused as to how to find certain resources and get started. But I hadn't considered what alternatives were. So I personally don't have experience with Confluence, but I think at least trying it as a potential replacement for like, okay, do you want to get involved in this project? Here is the one link you need, and go from there. And if we try it and it goes poorly, then fine, we can revert or try something else. But to me, I don't think there's all that big of a downside to trying it, given that it seems like people are struggling with the current solution.
Yeah, so maybe a quick thing to maybe poll the room, and maybe this is something that LR folks can talk about. I believe they provide a hosted solution. And so maybe just getting a sense of how that works and what the benefits are would help inform this group. So either Kendall or Des, if you want to speak to that, please.
So what I can add to this, and thanks for mentioning Aswin, we do provide hosting services on Confluence for other projects too. And we have a lot of experience with older projects. In particular, in my case, I have been working with some of Confluence hosted for some other projects since probably back to 5 years ago or so, and other team members in my team are also that well experienced in Confluence. And we can say that one of the benefits of this, it makes the TSC meetings, the DevOps meetings accessible and faster to better to organize. And we also host recordings for each one of those meetings in case somebody misses a meeting or somebody wants to go back and look at the minutes. And it offers a lot of organization when it comes to assigning tasks that were left on meetings. So it does. It's an easier way to get a hold of people that are responsible for certain tasks, etc. So I do definitely recommend exploring that route. It can come in very, very beneficial.
And we actually already have a Confluence wiki set up for the outreach committee. So we can just add a space for the TSC. So it's already set up and ready to go if y'all are interested in exploring it.
So yeah, I think that, do you mean setting up a space for the TSC as like a space for us to explore it with the eye toward eventually moving the entire project onto the Confluence?
Just setting up a separate space that's not just, so the outreach committee has their own, so just keeping them separate. So then if people are interested in knowing what the TSC is working on, then go to the TSC space or the outreach space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess given that I haven't used it before, I'm not familiar with exactly how it works. That my assumption is that we want as much as possible there to be like one entry point. Mm-hmm. So as long as the different spaces are accessible from each other, then I see. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
So it's like a wiki is like the best way to explain it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great.
We also have not only the minutes for the meetings, but we also can have tutorials and release updates, etc. So I can definitely be up for showing how other communities are organizing their information.
Yeah, actually, Jessica, if you would be down, maybe the next we can play around with it ourselves with the space that Kendall puts up, and then maybe at the next bi-weekly sync, if you could give us a little like 5 to 8 minute overview of some of the features of how the other communities are using it. I think that would help like kickstart things. Yeah,
sure. I can use OwnUp's wiki as an example. I believe I shared that previously with Aswin and to show how other communities do it. But yeah, that's a good example that I can show.
Cool, thank you.
I think the one thing that I wanted to add is it sounded like this is an additional service, which does have a cost. Kendall, is that accurate?
It's already included in what the Magma Core Foundation is already paying for. It's just part of another service. So yeah, it's already covered. So it's not an additional.
Sweet, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as far as this proposal, let me see how it was worded. Okay, so this is, should we migrate? So I guess as far as the toward migration, it sounds like we're on board for moving in that direction, and then maybe in 2 weeks from now we can take a vote to say should we move forward with the trial, with migrating things over, with the idea that if it does happen to go poorly, we can migrate back, but with the idea that this seems like a reasonable choice. So yeah, if there's any additional hesitation, feel free to bring it up now or in chat later. Okay, so before I fill the next couple of minutes with combing the proposals backlog, or at least just giving an update, does anybody else have some ad hoc topics that they'd like to bring up?
Tarek?
Yes, we just added last minute thing. It's not an official proposal, but we thought we'd bring this up here. Let me share my screen quickly. So we have been, not this one, sorry. Stop share. Share screen again. Hopefully it says, what do you see?
Blackness. Oh, no, there we go. Magma CI task force. Goals for CI.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So what we have been discussing for the last week is the CI pipelines that we have already. And we wanted to see how can we improve our CI pipelines. And this proposal is going to be mainly focused on the CI pipelines, not on the CI infra. Just to be clear, CI infra is a separate discussion. Just to give you the kind of quick summary, we're thinking about having 3 stages for the CI pipelines. There's the pre-commit, which is on PRs, and there's the post-commit, which is on trunk for the main branch, as well as the release branches, and then a release pipeline. The on PR creation and update. So on every PR created or updated, we will split the build pipeline from the test pipeline. So currently we have both of them kind of entangled. So the build pipeline will have the build process kick started as soon as the PR is updated, as well as running all the pre-build tests like static code analysis, unit testing, and MS call flows. If the build is successful, we'll push the builds to a CI registry. And then this CI registry can be used on demand by the code maintainers. If they want to have extra confidence, they can start a post-build test using LT intake test, TerraVM, a light version of TerraVM or a light version of Spirent. This is only run manually by code maintainers for security reasons, as well as because this is, if you run this against every update to the PR, it's pretty demanding. So this is the kind of pre-commit pipeline. The post-commit pipeline, once the PR is committed and merged, so we have on top of trunk. Let's take this as one of the branches, which is the main branch. If there is any code change on the main branch, again, we'll run the build process separate from the test process. So we'll generate more builds this way. So the build process goes forward, and if the build is successful, it's going to be pushed to the test registry, as we do now, as well as we'll be running the pre-build tests from static code analysis, unit tests, and MS call flows. And for the testing piece, it's going to be continuously running based on infra availability. So as soon as the infra is available for testing, we'll pick the top of the latest build on that branch, and then we'll run all tests against that build. And the gate here is mainly the infra availability. And we talked about we have to sync all infra at the top of this pipeline, so that all infra run against the same build. So TerraVM, Spirent, and intake tests, all of them running against the same build. And we run this continuously as soon as the infra is available. The last pipeline is the release pipeline, which is a manually triggered pipeline. Once we have confidence on a test build, we'll build the AWS AMIs, and then we'll promote the test builds from the test registry into the production registry, and then push that build for final sanity testing with the ENS team and SIs who are willing to deploy this with partners. So this is in a nutshell what this proposal is. Again, it's a last minute addition to the to your timeline here, but happy to get some feedback from you guys.
On the post submit, if the the post build tests, the big ones fail, do we plan to take any action there, or do you have any plans for like how do we I guess I'm just wondering how this integrates into like our merge freeze, like all that.
So my thought, and then I feel like a specifics would be helpful. My thought was like, we have a test registry, and that is everything's promoted to the test registry, just from master one way or the other, and then things only get promoted to stable if they pass the full set of post CI checks, and then things only get promoted to like a tagged version after we provide, for now at least, manual testing or whatever it is, the full set of possible tests we could provide based on that stable release. Tariq, is that what you had in mind, or is there something different?
Yeah, so what we have in mind here is mainly just the CI pipelines. Now, what happens based on the results of these pipelines is something that we need to discuss. For example, I mean, if the test pipeline itself fails on that specific build, I think that should be a gate for releases. We cannot release off that. It should be also, it could kickstart some code freezes based on the kind of failure that we're seeing. Same thing here with the build process. If the build process itself fails, we need to kind of instrument some tools into what happens as a result of that failure. So this does not really go into details about the consequence of a failure on any of these, any one of these pipelines.
So in my mind, the value, there's like two value adds to specifying this out explicitly instead of having it kind of be incrementally added over time, which is, more or less what we had right now. One is, okay, top down, what are we doing? What's the right order for these to go in? And like, when you add a new test, here's the ontology or whatever for where this test should live. But I do think the second one is being explicit about like, how does a build go from a PR all the way through to a release? And it feels like, to me, that's like a core part of what is the build process and what is CI trying to output. So is that something that is like, you're just looking for initial input on this and that's coming like subsequently, or what's your intent with presenting the changes?
So my intent was mainly cleaning up our CI pipelines. Now, as I said, there has to be some gates based on the results of these pipelines, and this is not specified yet in this document. Like, for example, on the PR, the pre-commit, if there is a failure on any of these pipelines, that will automatically trigger that no commit, no merge kind of no merge policy, that you cannot merge unless the three pipelines here kind of are clear. The same thing with the post commit. We need to add some policy against what happens if a failure happens on any of these, and this policy is not yet specified. What we're trying to do here is just clean up the pipelines and then talk about policy later. It doesn't have to be, it could be in parallel. We talk about policy in parallel, but this is just mainly purely technical pipeline institution.
Cool. Can you send this to either the TSC public chat or somewhere with permission so we can add comments?
Yes, so we had to do last minute thing here because of access issues, but we'll figure out a way to clean this up and send it to you.
Cool. Yeah, so I mean, I think that at this point, it seems like directionally cleaning things up makes sense. It doesn't seem like there's anything crazy being proposed that would need a TSC vote. To me, I do think that there's a couple of comments that I think, or questions that I'd want to throw in there, but we're out of time. But yeah, to me, this seems reasonable unless anyone else has other inputs. The thing that I would be excited about is like explicitly specifying in a public manner, how does a build go all the way through the pipeline and with what gates. And I do think that that's something that the TSC could potentially vote on, given that it's going to impact the community potentially more explicitly. But yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
I think I'd agree. I think the interest here is more that it just gets public visibility in a durable manner. Because I don't think anyone can disagree with like improving the CI situation in a best effort way. So like I think it's more just about the process and making sure it's public and future referenceable. Because like so often we have documents that never make it outside, and then we're trying to reference them out, weeks later. So anyway, or years later.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Okay. Thanks for presenting, Tariq. Excited for this. I do think the last input is, I don't know if this is at all related to when we get to get rid of Circle CI. Not that I dislike Circle CI, just ready for GitHub Actions only. Yeah, excited.
That's the aim. I think we have good news that we were able to run LT and tech tests and GitHub Action nodes. But I think Tim will be most likely sharing something in the DevOps meeting.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Excited for this. Okay, and then we can go through the proposals backlog next time. But basically, I've cleaned it up to a sufficient degree, so there's nothing immediately pressing. And yeah, all right. Thanks, everyone. We can cut it there, 2 minutes late, and thanks for tuning in.